So, my dear, welcome to Poets of the East. I have the great pleasure of having Jennifer Leong, also known as Soy Avocado, in her poetic life. Welcome, dear. I hope you're well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Yeah.
It's my pleasure, believe me. Here at Poets of the East, I invite the best poets of the globe to have a little chat so we can learn a little something about them. I've never been happy with our 5 minute, 3 minute, 2 minute appearances on Zoom, as wonderful as they are, and they are wonderful. But I always want to learn more about the mind, the heart, the soul behind those marvelous words. A poet boils down ideas, boils down emotions to a small string of words. And since communication at best is an ephemeral, elusive thing, that poets try to do this with a small set of words, I just always have found so marvelous, almost miraculous. So, as you know, should I call you Soy or should I call you Jennifer? What do you prefer this morning?
Okay, Jennifer, maybe? Yes.
Jennifer.
I
Again,
get
my
confused
honor, dear,
sometimes too. Yeah.
to talk to you.
Yes.
Okay, on my little list of questions. So the first is, what's the earliest book you remember in your childhood?
Well, maybe Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay, okay. Next, any of your childhood books, did they charm you so much that you kind of kept them around for a while?
Yes, the nursery rhyme ones as well. And the fairy tales.
Great, great. Okay, next question. Um, are there any that you still think of so very fondly?
Mm, Picture books. I love picture books.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know that a lot of your poems have a very special graphic presentation in them. And I think that's wonderful. When did you, now we all wrote for school of necessity, but do you remember starting to write for fun?
I never really wrote poetry in school. That wasn't really emphasized in our system. And we were only introduced to poetry in secondary school, which would be like high school, probably about age of 13, 14, until about 16. And it was only like a few poems that we needed to cover, and that was it. Yeah, so we were not brought up with a lot of poetry in our lives. Having said that, I mean, if you consider nursery rhymes to be poetry, then
I
that
do.
was really part of my childhood, yes, but not in that very serious sense of reading poetry and studying and criticizing or doing a critique on certain poems and all that. So not very much of that.
Now, did you keep a diary? Did you write in school situations like newsletters or yearbook or stuff like that?
I used to like doing argumentative essays where I would discuss the pros and cons and then come to some sort of conclusion either way, or sometimes I tend towards one side rather than the other. It may not be like a totally 100% conclusion. I will still leave some room for change if possible. Yeah.
Okay. I had a funny experience where in middle school, which is seventh through ninth grade, I was editor of the school newspaper. And my very first paper, I wrote a very judgmental piece about some of the programs in the school. And I got called
Right.
into the principal's office and he said, "You are not a crusading editor."
Wow.
I must
Okay.
admit, I had that journalist bug even then, and I wanted to
Right.
expose wrongdoing.
Mm. Yeah. So
Okay,
I suppose our childhood stays with us in some ways.
it does. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you started being exposed to literature, um, what were some of the early authors that impressed you, that inspired you?
I think it was more the teacher rather than the author.
Okay.
So I had a nun who taught us Mayor of Casterbridge, Thomas Hardy, and she had a very different take from the author. And she talked about fate and um the take that the characters in the book had and how differently they viewed life. And I guess that really still impacted me until today. And when I started writing poetry, I would like to end rhyme all my lines. And when somebody pointed out to me that I was really squeezing rhyme out of stone and it became very stilted, I was quite sad. And I went to her and I said, I just started writing poetry and I thought everything had to rhyme. And she said, "Oh, it's nice to have rhyme." She was so encouraging. And this was after, okay, I've left secondary school since I can't count. So it's maybe about 50, less than 50 years, but quite a number of decades already. But it was easy to get in touch with her again. And so when I started writing poetry and I was like talking to her, we reconnected. Then when I came to this point where I was so sad that somebody said, I was just doing very stilted rhyme, she was very encouraging. So I would say she had a very, very big impact on how I viewed literature and poetry.
Very nice. Yeah, I got introduced to public performance poetry probably in my mid-teens, uh,
Mm.
16, 17 years old. And this was the era of the Vietnam War. And I was an adamant peace advocate. And so I wrote all this, really strongly worded poetry about being an anti-war person. And I did rhyme. And it was funny, I was pulled aside by one of the senior poets, and he said, rhyming, it's not in favor anymore. You should really stop that if you want to be taken serious. And I said, I appreciate that. And I know he meant well. I said,
Yes.
but you see, I follow a muse. I am inspired, and I will not argue with her. If she rhymes, by God, I rhyme too. It's just I just have to follow what's in my heart.
Yeah.
So I've been rhyming ever since, absolutely unabashed.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and something else about rhyme. I did a poetry workshop with um a new group of people, and they are younger, a lot younger. And I was talking about rhyme not being really in fashion and all that. And one of them started rapping. And then when he did that, I realized that rap is rhyme as well. So who is to say that rhyme is not the thing to do now?
Well,
Right?
it's used in commercials, it's used in songs,
Right.
it's used in sports, it's used in military. I think there is a purpose to rhyme. I really
Yes.
do. If
Yep.
it's only to help you memorize.
Yes. And it also helps to spell. My children learned how to read and spell through rhyme, Dr. Seuss and all that. So it really helps a lot if you just need to concentrate on the first consonant and the rest of the words, you know how to read the rest, then it's a lot easier to learn how to read and spell.
Let me ask you kind of a technical poetry question. Now, some poets say you should write every day. Though it doesn't matter whether you're going to share it or not, you maybe throw it away, but you should write every day just to polish your writing. On the other side, the other extreme end of the spectrum, there are people that say, oh, no, no, only write when you're inspired. You're forcing it. Otherwise, you should only write when the spirit moves you. You have to write, then write. So in that extreme, in between there somewhere, where do you fall? Do you believe in writing often, or do you believe on writing really when it feels right?
I have been quite blessed to find reason to write every day. So I came upon one day when I realized that I couldn't write anything and I was so worried. I was like, oh no, what's going on? And I just realized then that it's a privilege and a gift to be able to write. And then I realized that it wasn't mine to like take it and just hide it. More like if I'm inspired to write, I should just write and share. So it's a gift, I suppose. It's like, when you have something and you just give, it keeps on giving. It's not something that, when you write a poem, after that, there's no other poem that will come out from you. So yeah, so there was one day when I really couldn't write anything. I was, oh no, if this is going to continue another day, then how do I get back into this? But ever since then, thank God I have managed to find something to write about every day. Yeah, I think it's the little things that count as well. It's not just like, I have won the biggest lottery ever, then you start writing about it. But like, or, you notice that today's sunset's a little bit different, or something is crawling on the floor, and then, it seems to have one leg extra, or, something that's a bit different. So I think it's to notice the difference and to embrace that, and perhaps also to notice things that are quite ordinary, actually. Yeah.
I I had an experience where I felt that dreaded sense. Oh my God, will I write again? Will I
Yes.
doubting my writing? And I came across one of my favorite absurdist writers, a gentleman named Italo Calvino. He has a cure for writer's block. He said, sit down, write about the silliest, smallest, most inconsequential thing, show it to no one, burn it when you're done, but just write a descriptive down. And I thought, I'll try it. I'll try that. And so my next task that particular morning was I had to gather the recycled goods, the glass, the plastic, the paper, etc. That was my morning chore. So I thought, well, I'll write about that. I'll write about each step of it because who the heck am I going to show this? This is, there's nothing to it. And when I finished writing it, I was so charmed by it. It was a lovely little piece. And I thought, okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah. And the more absurd it is, the more interesting as well, because the imagination just runs,
Yeah.
and you have like flying objects and things that suddenly sprout from the ground, things like that. Yeah. So it's very
There's a
interesting.
there's a wonderful poet named Finn Bell. I don't know if you run.
Yes, I know.
Okay,
Yes,
you know
yes,
Finn. Well,
yes.
Finn is I think famous for giving rather unusual prompts. And I've never been one to write for prompts. I like inspiration and try to come from that. And since I pay attention to the news, there's lots of absurdity in the news. So, but I thought, what the heck? This one time I'm going to go ahead and sit in and I'll try to write whatever prompt she asks. And she set a prompt that I thought so ridiculous, so absurd. There's no way I could write about it. She asked us to write about imagine if you're a thief and you're stealing the most expensive garlic bulb ever.
Garlic bulb.
And I
Okay.
thought, I don't write crime. I don't write mystery. I don't write murder. I don't write any of that stuff. How the heck could I come at this? And so I sort of dismissed it initially. But then I thought, well, that's exactly why I should write it because I don't think there's anything there. And it turned out very, very nice and very funny. And I really liked it afterwards. So I thank her for stretching my sense of the possible. Okay, next. Are there topics that you address frequently?
Hope. And maybe identity.
I just wrote an identity poem. It turned out very nice. Okay, next. Do you write social commentary?
No. Not
Um,
that I'm aware of. Maybe it creeps into the poem, but not deliberately. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, relationships is one thing. Dealing with the state and government and all that can get very complicated, and I understand that. Okay. Do you feel that poets have a responsibility to address issues of their time?
Hmm. That's a very tough question. I am not so sure about that
Hmm?
because I tend to write more of things that are more individual and personal on that kind of basis rather than um things that are on a larger scale. Yeah.
Well, within a person, that's a big universe. It's a
Thank
large
you.
target to address. Yeah. Okay. Um, if a young person asks you, is it is poetry important enough? Is poetry important enough that I should spend time on it? Or should I do something more responsible or more useful with my time?
Oh, okay. I think for me, poetry is very important to me now. It didn't used to be until I started writing, say, in the second half of 2021. So I would say that you just give poetry a try, just try poetry, and which is the kind of workshops that I run as well. Because, like I said earlier, we don't really have a culture or a school system where we emphasize literature or poetry. Maybe we're beginning to, but in the past, it wasn't like that. So I would just say give it a try. And I'm not poetry is special because you are responsible for words and you use words to process your thoughts and your emotions, your feelings, your anger, whatever, um, and confusion as well, and grief too, and joy, and also relationships with people. It can help somebody or it can help me for sure. So why don't you just give it a try? Of course, um, the space is also open for the person to try painting, drawing, dance, um, theater, music. So all these are good art forms to get into as well. And many times they kind of like help each other as well, the different art forms. Because if you do movement, then you also know how to, or theater, for instance, then your spoken poetry will be a lot more interesting and you can emote better. And likewise, if you have a musical ear, you can probably have different cadences as well and the dynamics of how loud and how soft and so on. So I think it's important, poetry, because of the words. It's the only art form that involves words. And I would also argue that songs are also from poetry, lyrics. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Next. If you I want you to imagine a big pot for stew, and the stew you want to make is a poet. What do you add in? What do you add into that kettle? What do you put in? What makes a good poet?
Imagination, curiosity, willingness to try and to have a thick skin as well, because people might not take to your poetry very much. It might be subject to a lot of criticism, or, some people will say that you're wasting time. So a thick skin and somebody who is anchored as well, to know that it's a way of dealing with things, and somebody who is also unselfish, I guess, because one could be a poet and I would also say be a little bit responsible too, because sometimes if we say a lot of things that are very negative and it may depress people, that might not be very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a interesting situation about a month ago. I was at a poetry forum in Boston, and I did my typical, hopefully mildly amusing little political digs, and this a woman who had been introduced as a major poetry editor of an important poetry magazine. She said in a side comment to me, she says, I don't know if you realize it, but humor in poetry is not respected. You really,
Hmm.
if you want to be respected as a poet, you need to leave that humor behind. And besides, what's worse, you even rhyme.
Okay.
And I said, I'm guilty. Guilty, absolutely. I do not shy away from the fact that I rhyme. I said, and I understand what you're saying. She said, well, you see, serious poets that talk about the drama of their lives, the pain they've suffered, the abuse they've taken, these poets are taken seriously. And a humorous poet, oh my God, that's just silly. And I said, well, thank you. Thank you. And I thought enough of her comment that I later wrote a little poem called He Lost His Morose, Gave Up the Ghost. Ah! When I was in my teens, I wrote sad, dark poetry. But I decided that if you want to see the world that way, that's all you're going to see. So it's I think it's happier anyway to look at the humorous side of things.
Yes.
Okay.
And rhyme.
Yeah,
And
and rhyme
rhyme.
if you
Yeah.
want to. Absolutely.
Yes, if you want to.
Okay. Um, is narrative important in poetry? Telling a story?
Hmm. It depends on what I'm trying to convey. I would think that there should be a story if the poem is supposed to be a bit long. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I my introduction beyond fairy tales and nursery rhymes, I got a copy of the Iliad when I was very young, and I absolutely not only did I fall in love with narrative saga poetry, but it introduced me and gave me a love of ancient history. So I read all the ancient history I could get, especially the first person stuff, rather than the global analysis afterwards. Carlyle's book on the French Revolution I thought was just marvelous because it's quoting headlines, it's reading editorials, it's the news of the time, and you get such a living sense of what they were going through. Just marvelous stuff. Okay, as we come down to the very end, my last question for you is, do you have a question for me?
Yes. Can you read the identity poem?
Oh, I can. I can and I will. I think it the genesis of this was amazing. My wife and I just came from a political rally, okay? And we were wearing T-shirts that said, what was it? Melt ice. ICE is this immigration force that doing horrible, lawless things in the street. And and we were still wearing these T-shirts that were, if you will, political. And in the area we live in, it's a very conservative, pro-Trump area. So it was a little nervy for us to continue to wear our shirts. And the staff loved it, right? The staff of the restaurant thought it was great that we were wearing it. Oh, I like your shirt. And I happened to look, it was one of those restaurants where you could see into the kitchen. That's not always the case, but I could see into the kitchen, and I saw a gentleman, a chef, with a patch over one eye. And I thought, oh my God. And suddenly a whole poem appeared. So this is my identity poem. And I call it Stanley and Livingston, because that was about searching, right? Okay. So Ariel told the story. She sang and rang the power, the glory of the stranger, Sven. Sven the pirate, when never in a hurry, yet never ceased to bend. It seems like a dream. He washed ashore one morning, just a wee bit before dawning, when even the rooster, the clooster himself, was still abed yawning. His one glorious eye, not aimed forlorn at the sky, was always looking back to where they staged the attack. He raged back to where he lived before he'd set sail months ago from fair Ithaca's shore, washed up 7 months later at this busy Greek restaurant's door. Sure, you might guess, looking out at this glorious mess, what's it all for? Who will confess? He was swallowed up in a swirling, hurling maelstrom, in a storm-tossed sea. He'd given up all hope, or so she told me. Iris had got it into her head that they hadn't dated for months. What was the line that she was scornfully force-fed? You see, over tea and crumpet lunch, not since Gerald, the wry Scot, had recovered that case of the mumps he got. He washed up on the shore, right on the steps of this Greek restaurant door, tangled, mangled, nearly strangled in a bedraggled seaweed net that he'll never forget. But it seemed clear to Iris this had all happened before. Deja vu, right at her door. I mean, this was just what happened in this store. What was it? What were we all here for? He's one hell of a chef, said the manager, left. Cosa Costas, who'd seen many a talented cook, but not one who could top this. Just taste a look. Sven knew his way around cooking, that's for sure. He'd walk boldly into the kitchen merely moments after crawling clumsily through that front door. Tricia had noticed, and so did old Max. Sven was the sort of character that preferred camouflaging his tracks, regardless of the facts. Ever loose, begad, never ephemeral, with his slacker's loose grasp on the fruity, nutty facts. The patch over his eye had a life of its own. Someone had embroidered on it the tiniest crown and a sparkling little LED throne. Mary, had a story to tell. She was undercover doing research for a paperback book she just had to sell. Her research, you see, was part of a study. As a life-song lotion worker who had a history with Putty. Putty, this fellow, you may remember, it was more than a little nutty. He hated Lorraine. He dated Lorraine. That much was plain. You may remember he was once a sponge diver, a survivor who turned pirate, you see. He lived on his sailboat, a thrifty little frail boat off the south coast of Spain, where it remains to this day in a quiet little quay just north of a reef, out of reach of those irrepressible thieves. Iris's research on her theory of identity, inspired her to regularly change her name in the fertile second half of the last century, which scarcely deserves any lingering dysentery. Her specialized research. Then there was this chef here named Sven. They collided outside the Greek restaurant when he reliably assured her she'd once again made exact change. Once again. They had a mostly discreet relationship, her and Sven, till late one night over a bottle of Chianti. They got sort of romantic, but Sven reared up, tilted, nearly upended his cup, paused and said, "Please stop me. Don't hop atop me. I might just act with abandon, and therefore from now on, dear Iris, you best call me Brandon."
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
I
That's a
saw
very
this.
long poem for an encounter that was at the, yeah.
And so I say to the waitress when she comes over, I said, what is the chef's name? The guy with the eye patch. And she goes, oh, he says to call him Brandon. And I went, oh, it just gets better. So I weave
Yeah.
this whole thing. And the young lady, the waitress says, well, you see, I used to be a social worker. That's where the lotion worker comes in. And because of the Trump downsizing of all social services, she's now a waitress. So I thought
Mm,
she's a waitress in search of identity, former social worker. Now she's
yes.
so she goes, well,
Yeah.
I have to please bring it by. I want to see it. So I have a built-in audience, Jennifer.
Right. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you for sharing that.
Uh, I usually share at least one with my dear, blessed guests. So now the fun begins. Jennifer, the stage is yours. Read, read your poems, my dear.
Thank you, Rick. This poem is called Postcard from the Coast. It's addressed to somebody called Jen, and it was written sometime late last year when I was reading. I was supposed to read this poem with a group of classical guitarists who would play the music. And then there was a virtual reality artist as well. So we were all doing the art form that we were supposed to be doing at the same time. So this is called Postcard from the Coast. Dear Jen, remember last year I took for granted wild dolphin sightings on their wanderings? All we saw was one pink plastic dolphin at the boat stern and with air bloated fins. I'd calculated the time difference, alarm set certain I had got it right. But no, could have missed the team's meet for this, for I had added hours, not subtracted. Very timely jokes. Distilled and stilled me. The meeting was right before the boat ride. For dolphin sightings, the weather was fine. The ocean cobalt, colored, then sprayed salt. As we went in the boat, floating with hope, it was exciting, exhilarating. In a boat for 12 in the Atlantic Ocean with its song, thoughts went chaotic. When it got bumpy, they picked a quarrel, eyes slightly squinting, aimed at fault finding. Curveballs do appear when falling dew, spinning their way into life as heads rear. Dolphins aplenty, surfacing we saw with the widest grins and axial spins. The sun deigned to shine on everyone in order not to leave any behind. In the wide expanse, azure shades were seen. Azulejos towels, so lejos, far from our Singapore Isle. Emerald, turquoise, lapis lazuli, gathered with silver, shimmering brightly. Tiptoes of childhood just dipped themselves in kue lapis memory and blue-toned nasi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottlenose dolphins jumped for joy, with joy clinging onto skin. Limiting factors, grainy and unclear, they circumscribed fear about sand beneath. Very soon after, common dolphins in an array of sprays grazed us with favor, twirling in spirals, double and triple, spins and somersaults off Portugal's coast, spontaneous and imperceptible to unfocused eyes that read only sighs. Don't mistake orcas for scary monsters. Someone declared them emblems of freedom. 3 white gulls across cerulean skies, soaked in smells untouched, voiced aloud their cries. From top to bottom, oceanic stories, oftentimes unseen, spoke their own rhythm. For waves rolled aligned with foam parallel to one another, swimming together. Ultrasonically, approaching the throne, forming home's backbone, hearts pulsate as one. I'm fascinated by these sea mammals with 5 dorsal fins, such great travel tales. Yours truly, Soy.
Lovely, lovely.
Thank you. This has a backstory because I was in Portugal when we had the Zoom meeting and I calculated the time difference wrongly. So instead of subtracting from Singapore time, I added, and I thought that I'll be at the accommodation at 11 o'clock at night, but it was actually like 8 a.m. in the morning in Portugal. And that was my my boat ride to try and see dolphins. So my husband said, you either go for the Zoom or you miss the dolphin ride. The boat ride. And I said, I want to do both. I want to do both. So we found a cafe that was open early in the morning. And then we used the Wi-Fi and we could Zoom. And so this poem came about from there. And what was most interesting was that the topic for that particular event for the library was postcards, travel tales. And the year before, we tried to see dolphins, but we only saw one pink plastic dolphin. So this year, we were very keen to not just have one pink plastic dolphin. So we actually had such a number of dolphins and we were very, very thrilled. Yeah. So that's the story behind this. I
Great.
would like to share screen for the rest of the poems if
Sure. Sure.
possible.
Hold on a second. Let me
Okay.
arrange that.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Thank you. So this is a poem that was first published in Finbell's Maya Literature, Volume 3, Issue 4, Reflecting Waters. It's quite a recent issue.
Mhm.
Um, so this is about waters that no longer reflect. The bar is raised. Higher and higher. I stretch to reach it. I fail and fall. I tiptoe. A cramp develops like a clamp that clamps shut. It languishes on the seafloor, afraid of its own tongue and language that might escape. The lips in a lisp. Bars cut across the window pane to prevent intruders from getting in. And also the torment that tortures from getting out. I want to clean up. I spy a bar of soap. It contains olive oil. Present is an olive branch offering me peace. If I hold on to this to wash away the bad, bridging me over waters that no longer reflect, they refresh me, rejuvenating me to my junior days. Good company for my inverted image, clear as day now, in the reflecting water, staring at me. We see eye to eye, irises sparkle in shimmering sunlight. I stay a while, reflecting near the waters. I remain there, transformed into joy with her voice, in full-fledged wings, and I begin to sing the prelude. So this poem can be read in a different order in terms of the lines. So yeah, so I will not do that now. But basically we can read the lines in a different order. So the next poem is on dolphins again. I like dolphins because they smile and they grin. Okay, so from the ocean, we move to the sky. Dolphin, a peach pink dolphin guides in an azure cloudscape, far from beach and sea. Far from beach and sea guides in an azure cloudscape, a peach pink dolphin. So this is a haiku. Yeah, I think
Very
so.
nice.
I just saw this picture and I just needed to take a photo of it. And I saw this scene before me and I took this photo because I think it really looks like a dolphin.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, my imagination is quite crazy. So,
Well, the dolphins in the Amazon River are pink. There are
mm,
freshwater dolphins in the Amazon River, and they are pink.
okay. And then the next one is about shell toting. Toting a shell as home, like the tortoise, toying with an idea, it shows on her face. She has to choose which way to go. She steps out of the water and plods inland. She picks seashells on the seashore. She plans to present them to the seahorse. And again, this is a palindrome poem. The next one is avocado skin. So we are talking about the avocado skin is much like crocodile skin, rough on the inside. Rough on the outside. What is inside is still soft, so much like the durian. And this is a durian. It's larger than life because it is a model and it is outside a restaurant. I'm not sure whether you've tried eating durian before.
No.
Okay. It's got very hard shell with thorns, and these are really very prickly and thorny and pokey. And it's got a smell. Some people say like very, very old, unwashed socks. Some people say that it's a beautiful fragrant smell. So let's read this particular piece and see what you think of it.
Okay.
Pungent, someone says as he turns away. I cannot agree. It's full of fragrance. It's full of fragrance. I cannot agree as he turns away. Pungent, someone says. So it depends on how you read it and how you feel about the smell and the taste. It's quite soft inside. Yeah. So some people like the flesh, but they don't like the smell.
Do
When
you
you come
eat
to
it?
Singapore, you should try it. Yeah, sorry.
Do you eat it raw or do you cook it?
It's a fruit. So you cut through the durian and then you kind of like press down the sides.
Ah,
And inside there will be the fruit. And the fruit comes with a big seed. So the flesh of the fruit is not really a lot, considering that the seed is actually quite big. I suppose like an avocado as well, because the avocado seed is quite big
yeah,
too.
or a mango with a big seed in the middle.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, thank you. These are lovely. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. And this is a wafer that is not very tasty, but it's a childhood kind of wafer, so it reminds me of childhood. Pastel rainbow hues, concentric circles on thin, crisp wafers. Childhood giggles world. So this, again, like the durian poem, is really a DuaTresPentaStep stanza, which has 4 lines, and any 2 lines will form n rhymes, and 5 syllables a line. Yep. So I gave this to my auntie, and she was just, you could see in her eyes that she was just thinking about childhood as well. Yeah. So she was very happy with this wafer. It's not like it's very nice to eat, but I suppose what we grew up with, we always tend
Yeah,
to,
yeah. The
yeah,
memory alone makes it tasty.
yes. And I was doing a series of workshops and seminar with at the National Library here, and we were talking about food that we, like bite-sized stories. So it's all stories about food, and it's for seniors. So I think it's good that we remember childhood food or maybe food that we can get from our food courts and hawker centers here. Yes. Okay, the next one is actually about scars, because we're talking about, I suppose, shells and skin and exterior. So this one is rhyming. Yes. So this was first published in Men Matters Online Journal, and it is a poem about scars. And I was actually referring to The Lion King by Disney as well in this story. And the other references I think we can see when I go through the poem. So Scar sibling is the constitutional king. Irrepressible, sulking in the foremost is the foremost thing. Presumably, this is how it came to be, putting the blame on Cain-Abel rivalry. Ageless story of one unhappy family. A cradle song from womb or nursery, lulls and pulls, the rocking towards complacency. Scarred, sorry, seated. Wait, my hand. Oh, sorry. What's this? Scarred. Scarred is the boat, relegated to redundancy, skirting for avoidance of an itinerant trajectory, mulling plots against the siblings' progeny. Slim glimpses of some semblance of finality, the scared and sacred do speak symbolically about the scarred, embittered son surviving. His murderous intention is fed and thriving, marked vehemently with venom and groans, dusk to dust, propping headstones and bones. when grass sometimes grows patchily and each takes two shades of green differently. For choice of fame, infamy, or flame to suture, the broth boiled and ready for both brothers. And again, this poem could be read from the bottom line to the top or in some other order that you prefer. So Men Matters Online Journal is run by Emeritus Professor Malachi Edwin Venter, Venter, Venter Money. Yeah. So this is a journal that sometimes calls for submissions. And this was one of the submissions that I was privileged to have included in this issue. Yeah. Okay, so the next poem is, okay, so this is a series of ekphrastic poetry, and this is a painting by a local artist called Chen Yan Chong, and it is National Gallery Singapore now, but this building used to be the Supreme Court of Singapore. And I have been able to do poetry and with the other art forms as well, people who do other art forms at this location. And it's a dream come true for me because I really love this place. It's meaningful because I used to go to this place when I was younger, almost at least once a week, when I was practicing in practicing as a litigator in court. And then yeah, so now it's the National Gallery. So this is now what is inside. Towards the other part of the building is towards this side. So this is the Supreme Court side, and then they merged the buildings, and this part of it is City Hall side, but now it's the entire National Gallery there. And this is the inside of it. This is the National Gallery side. I'm sorry, the City Hall side, but it's still part of the National Gallery. So, and I was working with a virtual reality visual artist who was doing, we were looking for the light to see how it will pan out at the actual event. So we were sitting under this glass ceiling and we just wanted to see how the light would change as the sun set and, you know, it got darker. And this was also something which I suppose I was trying to figure out how different it would be like to be seated under the ceiling when I sat through like 2 hours or 3 hours in Sagrada Familia, and I witnessed the light change, and it was amazing because it went through the stained glass and everything there. And I know, Rick, that you work with light.
Oh, yes.
So yeah,
Yes,
yes.
very much so.
Yeah. So this is I think this is a tanker. Okay. So though the light changes through bright sun lightness to night, the canopy stays canvassing for a response despite fallout from storm clouds. So this particular evening when we were trying to see how the light was changing, actually there was a storm as well. So the light change was even more dramatic. And this is a poem that I wrote for the event that we did at National Gallery. And it was written after Compositions with Fruits, which is an oil on canvas by Georgette Chen. And the poem is called Seed Regenerations because the theme that we worked on was regenerations. And I was very, very blessed to have collaborated with musicians Xavier Hugh and Pierre Alexander Mio, as well as the visual reality artist Benedict Yu. And these are people from the next generation because they are a lot younger than myself. So it's really, it wasn't planned, you know, it's just like they just, you know, came onto the scene to join up with us to do this. And so this is an event that we have co-founded, two persons and myself. and we call it NoesisConverseNation. So it had its second time at National Gallery Singapore on 28th of March. The first one was on 28th September last year. And the event space was sponsored by DBS Bank. And so otherwise we would not have been able to afford the event
Sure.
venue. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Seed Regenerations, and it's a DuaTresPentaStep poem.
Well,
The
let me
seed
just say
that's
congratulations that you've done this festival. That's great.
Oh, thank you. It's a single event that involves music, and the music is done impromptu, so it's just improvised music.
Wow, nice.
Yes, and the artist would just draw in the air and with his headset on. So what we can see is it will be projected on the screen.
Nice.
So all this is all going on. So we don't rehearse, except for the time when we just sat there and saw whether the light would be dark enough or bright enough, for
Right,
this to go
right,
on.
right.
But we didn't rehearse, and the musicians just played whatever they felt would
Wonderful.
work. So lately I've been like trying things where like impromptu poetry, impromptu music, and dance, and artists also doing things all at the same time. And we just see what happens. Like, yeah. But Seed Regenerations was really written for this event. So this was not impromptu on my side. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So this is the seed that's planted or the fruit it's in, the egg or chicken, evergreen questions, egging and hedging for generations as life cycles through progeny ensues. What is seen displayed ripened vibrancy, purple, red, green, gold? 其中一个, one of them, with a crown on the head. The thorned king of fruits, the durian sits near the mangosteen, stand fans of the queen. A red fruitful bunch covered with rambut hair. Finger-like branches point the way upwards. One a fruit of stars, sunny yellow, and brown piping along the length of our song. I spy a man, though, alone by himself. I hear him murmur, I wish I could crow. She sits studying the fruit basket drawn, still interweaving in recollection. My nose knows something of the rose emblem. I wish I could paint un poco 一点点, a little resemblance. As AI manages to generate fast hunger for speed is addressed through works past, a myriad paths sown along the way, the varied layers tapestried in years. Tears can nourish hope. We seeds wait to spring. Regenerations for generations.
Lovely. Really lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. The painting is amazing as well. It's a basket of fruits. And in that basket, there were a durian, a mango, rambutans, which are red in color with things that look like black hair sticking out. And then there's mangosteen. Mangosteen is purple, very barny colors, and then with the sepals that are green. So it's really green and purple. And the mangosteen is called the queen of fruits. Whereas the durian is called the king of fruits. So yeah. So they are like royalty in the sense of fruits. The next one is also a painting by Cheng Yan Chong, and this is a very recent poem that I wrote. It's an acrostic poem as well. And this is Marina Bay Sands. So it's one of the iconic buildings in Singapore. Memories are made of these, aha, eureka, and simple short moments, recordings of sorts in our brains not yet processed and as yet unsorted. But they inhabit the space all legible and legit with the right to exist. Yes, each one. Someone speaks in monochromatic tones, another in primary colors, Noah in rainbow hues, minors cries, definitely voicing a lark-like chorus, for safely and on track, the ark has landed. This is also possible to be read from the bottom up. Yeah. Okay, so this one is it's called SOS or Shutter, and this was in Lott's issue Into the Light. This is a twin cinema poem, so we could read down the column one by one, and we could also read across. I will just do it across. Into the light. What does into mean? I ride on a train now going in one or more ways through a tunnel by way of introduction. That's what my brain says. Bombard and breach cell membranes. Thus, I write this all down, with modified DNA to lighten loads. Tact and tactile tentacles test. Unlike sound, ask if light feels offended. Light doesn't voice. If I turn and go away, I hear no answers or echoes along the scorched alleyway around mountainous chaos in the deepest, darkest valley with the rockiest terrain. Light travels long distances. A candle flame suffices and much faster than sound, though a little flickering light. It translates into helping me. It pokes hard at enemy attempts, far more quickly, I reckon, at darkness dictatorship. Should I be in dire straits, light gives a sense of space. It's imperative to leave. Light travels in straight lines. Have one eye open at least. In that sense, it is not pliable without scales to block. It presents an array of hues. The entrance isn't waterlogged. No cries uttered aloud. I can shudder, but not shudder, as rainbows arch upwards in bows. Out of the dark into the light, Gloria sings as the flame whirls at the apex of the vaulted ceiling. Tangles surrender in smooth moves. Rings repel in thunderous claps. Drumsticks roll as angels watch. Magpies stride beside bagpipers. Strings are coaxed into a tangle. Tambourines celebrate. All tidied and ready, lights halo and circles in its reach. I swallow my ego. I step into his marvelous light. I try to reflect light to shine from where I am on the train. Presently an arc of light radiates, seated or standing, I perceive, to warm and illumine my mind. Light inches unflinchingly for my fears.
Lovely, lovely.
And there was a reference to Gloria Estefan as well. The one about the fan. Yeah, because she has a song that goes that way, out of the dark into the light.
Very nice.
It's a
Do you
beautiful
have,
song by her. Yeah.
do you have maybe one or two more?
Yes, I have short ones, so I shall just finish them.
Okay.
If you don't mind, yeah. So this is home questions. It's another DuaTresPentaStep stanza. Is this really home? Am I truly home? Is it about you being here for me? Right. So this is Bersama, which means together in Malay. And Singapore is celebrating National Day on the 9th of August in 2 days' time. And this was written on 4th of July, Independence Day. Yeah, so here goes. This one has rhyme. A little red dot, that's Singapore, a melting pot with different foods, rice with chicken and clay pot, prata, mee rebus, rojak with youtiao. There's still lots of food to makan, some from when we were tots, others newer or fusion, whatever is cold or hot, or somewhere in between. Connect the dots in sunshine and rain for our little red dot. Bersama, we stand. And the final one is in the shape of a bag. The day's shadows up, front and backlit by the sun, lightening the graves.
Absolutely beautiful. Jennifer,
Thank you.
your work is so eloquent. Your use of metaphor, just breathtaking. And I also enjoy the playful way you sculpt the presentation of the poem, and you add that other dimension of read it this way, read it that way, read it from top to bottom, read it sideways. I think that it's like how drama sometimes they say it breaks the fourth wall. In other words, separates or removes the separation between the audience and the play. I really have always loved your work. I hope you
Thanks so
write
much.
for years and years and years and decades, and that people are blessed by your wisdom for centuries. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
so
me.
much. Thank you so much, Rick.
And last question, I'm going to ask one more. What would you say to somebody who said poetry is so powerful? What message would you have for our fellow poets?
Hmm. I think fellow poets will just understand each other, I feel. Unless they don't like rhyme, then it could be a bit difficult. But we can win them over with rhyme. Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter what sort of poetry you like. It doesn't matter at all. I think poetry speaks and it helps. Yeah. So even if you do not like rhyme, it's fine because not everybody likes the same thing, but we can all still like poetry. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I say to people is if poetry wasn't effective, you wouldn't hear it chanted at sports events. You wouldn't hear it in commercials. You wouldn't hear it in songs. You wouldn't hear it in the military. They chant as well. It's a powerful way of using language. And I think those of us who make it our art, people like you, Jennifer, do it a grace. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rick, for this.
Well, I hope to see you again soon. You have a wonderful evening.
You too have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.